The thing about a quantum leap is that it's only made possible the moment that you actually stop trying to do the thing that's been holding you back. And embrace the thing that you've been knowing deep down is right, but you haven't pursued fully. There's this visualization, it's of a fly, of a fly beating itself up into the window. Like, it just wants to leave so bad, and it wants to be free, and it wants to be expansive, and it wants to roam the world. And it keeps hitting its head. If only it knew that if it turned around and flew in the opposite direction, the window on the other side is open. And that's what it's like right before a quantum leap. So I'm grateful to be documenting this moment and to share a little bit of the truth of what this experience has been like for me, in reflection on the growth and the accomplishments that I have had, because I realized that I allowed myself to take all of the blame but none of the credit, and that's not healthy. So I made a list. And these 2 years have been nonsensical and fantastic. And the list goes like this. These 2 years, I fasted countless times. I burned every piece of clothing any man ever touched me in. And I burned all of their names. I emptied my storage unit and I gave away all of my physical possessions, most of my belongings. I sold my car and I lived out of a suitcase. I abstained from sex and I did deep chakra healing. I traveled to the Caribbean, the desert, the mountains, the city, and I walked ancient ruins in Italy. I grieved my parents' divorce and my childhood home being demolished. And I had uncomfortable conversations. I looked myself in the mirror. I gave the maid of honor speech at my sister's wedding. I journaled and I filled dozens of books. I published 2 of them. I took herbs and I cleansed my colon and my gut and my womb. I fell deeply in love and my heart broke open. I watched as the man I love chose somebody else. I practiced letting go. I wrote so many songs. I drew more drawings than I can even remember exist. And I danced, and I cried, and I laughed, and I meditated. I basked naked in the sun. I reverted to Islam. I met billionaires and I met millionaires, and I gave away my very last penny more than once. I spoke at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. I made real friends, and I learned how to receive love. I deleted my old social media, and I removed all of the contacts from my phone. I prayed. I juiced. I prayed more and I juiced more and I prayed. I spent hours holding yoga poses, sometimes hours in a day. I cried into lentils by myself in more than one location. And I practiced breathing. And I read a ton of books and took massive action. And still somehow this list hardly scratches the surface. For years, I did not have a home. It's ironic because there were years before where I had a place to live, but the house felt empty. I looked at the darkest depths of the soul, and since then, I uncovered to discover once and for all that home, it really is in the heart. And it's cliche, and it's annoying how true it is. I grew up totally blessed on an island in the middle of nowhere, a salty sand serenity. La mia piccola isola, and nobody knows. And when the years compounded, things changed like they do. And I love my family, and they love me. Even at our healthiest, I was always a black sheep. Atypical, extreme, bold, dramatic, and in my sweetest heart, sometimes reckless and risky. Although I came to see beyond all of the illusions, and I experienced the polarity of existence in a way that will only make sense to the people who have had some stroke of God give them the experience of something the same. And 2 years ago, I leapt into the hands of God with no plan and no regard for consequences and no other conscious context or competency. And I transported to a portal in Brooklyn, and my life sort of changed forever. It was a powder keg of emotion. What came next? And that's because I swore I met an angel, which took form as a bat out of hell. And I did. And it took me 2 more years to find me. And in those 2 years, I found home in spaces and places that life took me that were so opposite from one another. And I'm not sure that words could actually accurately describe it. But the healing systematically sent me on an adventure that attracted people who could actually understand. Women who could hold me and one another in the way that I secretly envied without understanding its omnipotence. Misfits that fit perfectly together in this container of expansion that we're designing with one another. And this time, it gets to be safe. And the healing gave me a process that allowed me to refine and redefine lifestyle on my own terms. And on my own accord, there I was regulating and elevating, and it levitated me beyond the limitations. But the truth is that my experience, even in that, was unique in essence. And while it's not easy for anyone to go crazy aligning with sanity, God does grant ease after hardship. There's a hub that I helped co-create and birth into life. And it's called Real. It became the family that I longed for after years of learning and unlearning what that word actually means. And now, in this next chapter, I'm defining that for myself. With love came truth, and today I practice respect, even while gestating this beautiful hub for self-sovereign development for others. I was trying to fit and mold myself into some vision of womanhood that I didn't hand build myself. And I didn't have the courage or the confidence to, because I feared that being me would make me lose love. And ironically, again, that is exactly what drove love away. In deeper healing, though, the truth is present again that no love is lost. In fact, it's nearly the opposite, because here, true love is found as a direct correlating result of unlocking the closed mind. And this became a mission, not a story of identification, but a return to divinity, in a remembrance that I would travel 1 billion times across every universe. And so it is. And so I laugh, cry at the same dang time, because there's a lot of feelings that come up with that. And I'm letting myself be held. And I'm letting myself be loved. And I'm opening up to the possibilities of what that looks like for me. On my terms. And I know God put me here to help so many women. Like so many. And there's such strength that comes in that. Oh. I've learned how to be gentle, yet firm. And I've learned how to have the same standards for pretty much everything as I do for food. Which is good, because I have high standards for food that I make myself. on principle. I've learned that it's only possible to actually create safety for others when you are safe within yourself. And the tricky part about that is you can't be safe within yourself leading inauthentically. And I had to realize that a very difficult way, because it's hard to let go. But then suddenly it's easy. And I've said this before, it's like it hurts, and then it doesn't anymore. And there's something beautiful in that. And like I said, that list didn't even scratch the surface of some of the things that I both endured and magnificently got to experience. And yet, in this present moment, with my whole heart, for real, I get to show up, both because of and despite those things. And so do you. And it's a shedding, it's a constant shedding. It really is. And it's so beautiful. And so pure. If it was the last thing I ever said to you, I would want you to know that your future is our future. I would want you to know that no matter how lonely you truly may feel sometimes, you're really not alone. There are people praying and hoping and searching and journaling and writing and calling for you, just to be you. I'm grateful to have been such an integral part of bringing a place where you can go with people like that to life. It feels raw. It feels tender. It feels true. It feels divine. And I'm glad that I get to document this moment right now, because I don't know what happens next, but I know what happens next It makes me proud. Yeah, it really does. So, in some ways I say goodbye, and in other ways I say hello. And we'll see each other soon, God willing. If nobody's told you this today, from the depths of my being, in my soul, and in my heart space, I love you. I'm grateful to know what that means now, because it's the law. And family is business. That is true.